Guys, there are spoilers for this film and this review. So if you don't want to get lost at sea, go watch film, then come back. You have been warned. Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan HD. So yeah, this is going to be a great time. Hey guys, and welcome back to an episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan HD, and this week we watched The Odyssey, written for the screen and directed by Christopher Nolan, based on the classic of the same name, starring Tom Holland and Matt Damon. This film is an epic, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Matt Damon was awesome. The story, the emotional moments, the just horrifying moments at points, all of it was awesome, and I loved it so much. But before I go on a whole tangent why I love this film, I'll tell you why and more back at the house.
I can still save them.
You're a man who needs to control his fate. But you cannot control this.
That world is gone.
No one could stand between me and home. Not even the gods.
Keep us free!
Hey guys, and welcome back to an episode of Ticket Tuesday. I am your host, Ronan HD, and this week we watched The Odyssey, directed and written for the screen by Christopher Nolan, with a little help from your old pal Homer, of course, from 3,000 years ago. So this film is starring Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, John Bernthal, John Leguizamo, Lupita Nyong'o, Elliot Page, Benny Safdie, and this film is a fantasy epic adventure, I guess. I wouldn't really call it a fun adventure, but it's a bit of an adventure film. They're going from place to place, seeing things. Not very pleasant things, but they're seeing things. And it's just, obviously it's a drama, I guess. There's a lot of different ways to describe it, but I'm just gonna jump straight into this movie. I thought this movie was fucking great. I thought it was really, really, really enjoyable, and I think just overall, I think I enjoyed this film even more than I enjoyed Oppenheimer. And I thought Oppenheimer was great, but I just think, like, maybe I'm a little biased because I just love ancient history, right? I think, like, and myth, like ancient myth too, is just so fucking awesome and cool to me. Like Greek mythology and like, you know, medieval stuff and just like myth in general just really fascinates me. There's something about like these folk stories and all these different gods and all these different deities and all the different like tall tales that they would tell about certain people, and like real people would go on these adventures to like fight mythological creatures and stuff. It's just so fascinating to me, and I think this movie does such a good balance of this fantastical stuff, like, and the mythological stuff, but it also really puts into perspective, like, how small, I guess, the humans are in all of it, no matter how skilled they are. And another thing, talking about the humans, I think this is probably one of the best Matt Damon roles I've ever seen, and not to knock on Matt Damon, I think he's a great actor, and I think just, I guess sometimes it's just, like, easy to forget just how great he is sometimes, due to how he sometimes plays, like, you know, simpler roles. Maybe not simpler, but, like, more mellow roles sometimes. And I think this, like, this super emotional, super, like, impactful, powerful performance just really, I guess, highlighted just how really great he is. And not to knock everybody else in this movie, I think pretty much everyone in this movie was great. Right? I think Tom Holland was really good. I think he was just, like, so good at playing this kid who wanted to be, you know, he wanted to step up to the plate, but he just wasn't quite ready for it, you know, and he just wasn't really, like, a man yet. He was still, like, a boy mentally. You know, he just wasn't, like, prepared for it. And then, like, at the end of the movie, when he proves himself, really great payoff, and I think Tom Holland's acting really adds to that payoff and makes it feel even more like, I guess, satisfying. I think Anne Hathaway did a really good job at playing someone who's just, you know, at the end of, like, she's, like, just so sick of everything, right? Like, her husband, Odysseus, that she was incredibly loyal to, left for war nearly 20 years ago, and she's just sick of it, right? She's sick of all these suitors, the goddamn suitors running amok in her palace, and just fucking ransacking everything, and taking everything, and just being general pests and parasites. And she's really good at just showing how sick she is and how much she misses Odysseus. I also really, one thing that I didn't know is that fucking John Leguizamo is in this movie, and I think he's great as, like, an old loyalist to Odysseus, one of the few who, you know, were still loyal to Odysseus. And again, I think one of my favorite, if not my favorite performance in this movie was Robert Pattinson. He was so easy to hate in this movie. He was so slimy. He was weaselly. He was a little shit, right? He was just the biggest fucking prick in the whole movie. And one thing that I loved about his character is that he's the perfect example of all talk, no walk, right? He was not, like, tough at all. He would not stand on business. He always, like, commanded his lackeys to do his dirty work for him. He never did anything himself, right? Because he was a coward, right? The movie made it super obvious that he couldn't really commit fully to something if he had to do it himself, right? He always like, you know, weaseled out of it by having somebody else do it. And he had this smug demeanor to him. Like, he always tried to, like, make himself seem like the most put together, the coolest, and, like, the biggest, like, as I said, the most confident guy in the room. But it was a facade, obviously. He was, like, it was, like, faux confidence. But that's what made you hate him even more, because he was just so sure of himself that nobody would stand up to him. Because how could you, right? He was basically protected as his role as a suitor, because, you know, if anybody tried to fight him, they would just, you know, get exiled. Even if they did kill him, his family would seek revenge, right? That's why they couldn't kill the suitors, even though they wanted to. Like Telemachus and Penelope, they wanted to kill the suitors. They just couldn't due to they were being protected. And I could go on all day about all the other performances and how great they were, but I think those were, like, the main ones that I really liked. And I also think, aside from that, I also just think, like, even though the film flew by for me, I think it didn't feel like it was a 3-hour epic. You know what I mean? Like, everything was so engaging. Everything was just so enthralling. Like, you were so on the edge of your seat the whole time, because something was always happening, right? Even if the scene was moving a little slower, it didn't feel like that, because you were so invested in the characters, and it just felt so, like, it flowed really well. Like, each scene very cleanly went into the next one, right? Even if it was like a flashback where a character was reciting a story from the past, when they would go to another scene to that flashback, it felt like buttery smooth. And I really liked the message of how the movie kind of implied that, like, the beginning of the downfall and the, like, corruption of humanity was the Trojan horse, because it was the ultimate betrayal, right? It was the ultimate act of treachery and just kind of evil, right? Not kind of, it was just an act of evil, because the people of Troy, they accepted it as a gift, as an offering of peace, right? They accepted it and they displayed it proudly in their city. And it wasn't an offering of peace. It was, you know, an offering of destruction, right? They came in and then they fucking ransacked the city and murdered everyone, right? And it was like a betrayal of trust. They broke, Zeus's law, I believe is what they called it in the movie. And Zeus's law was treat people as you would be treated, right? As you would want to be treated. You wouldn't want people to ransack your city and, like, say, hey, we're friends now, and then murder everyone after they give you a gift, right? I mean, I guess it was a gift, but in a different kind of connotation. But I also love how much Odysseus, like, the shame that the Trojan horse brings to him, and how guilty he feels about it, because he believes he set humanity on the wrong path. He believes that he's like normalized this type of treachery, this type of evil, because everybody heard about it. Like when Troy was sieged and burned, like they went to completely different countries who didn't even speak their language, and they were like, yeah, we know the sea people, right? We know the fall of Troy. We've heard of it, right? We're scared of the sea people. We don't want to go near them, right? But that probably inspired other regimes to be like, well, that's a great idea. We should just betray other people if that means conquering all the land we want to conquer, right? Who gives a shit about loyalty? Who gives a shit about respect or honor? We just want to own shit. We just want to run shit is essentially what they were thinking. And I love how much emphasis they put on the fact, because I guess since it was so long ago, I guess like people kind of think it was cool, and it's definitely fascinating. It's probably one of the most iconic, like, I guess, sieges in human history, if not probably the most iconic siege in human history. But I think it kind of does make people forget how genuinely evil it was, because they tricked them by thinking they were going to be cordially wrapping things up. So a scene that I think really hit me, I think a scene that I really enjoyed, which I guess could be interpreted or seen as the first victim of the Trojan horse, which was Elliot Page's character, who was the first victim of the Trojan horse because he sacrificed himself unknowingly, because he legitimately thought it was just a gift to the Trojans. He didn't know the plan, but they needed his, his belief in it just being a gift, to have the Trojans buy it and bring it into Troy so that they could do the thing they did. But obviously, as I said, Elliot Page's character didn't know that. So he said he would have given his life for that mission. He just wanted to know. He didn't want his final moments to die for something that he didn't even know he was going to die for, right? He just wanted to knowingly die for something, which, although, like, you can understand where both sides are coming from. Obviously, I feel like I'm more on Elliot Page's side because, of course, it's pretty shitty to die that way. Of course, don't want to die and get betrayed by your own side. But I just thought that that scene was really powerful, and I think Elliot Page's performance was also really fucking good. But I think we're gonna step away from that now, and we're gonna go into some of the the creatures and like the mythological like monsters and stuff, which I absolutely loved. I think the Cyclops was fucking great. I love how much like horror elements there were with the like whole Cyclops sequence, and how great the Cyclops looked. Like, it was a dude, I assume it was like a dude in makeup, right? And they used composition. Sometimes it was a puppet, sometimes it was a dude in composition. But one thing I loved about it was how like casual the Cyclops was, and how, I don't know, he just had this like intimidating aura emanating off of him, right? Because he easily like squashed Odysseus and his men. Like, if he wanted to, he could have killed all of them right when they stepped into his cave. Obviously, he didn't do that because they were like food, right? He was going to keep them in his cave and just eat them one by one, right? As like a food supply. And there wasn't really anything they could do. Like, what were they going to do? Kill him? They were going to do that originally, but then Odysseus was like, well, if we kill him, we're trapped in here because we can't lift that rock, right? The rock is this big ass like door that only the Cyclops can go up and down. So if we kill him, we can't leave. And the Cyclops knew that, right? So he knew that they couldn't kill him. Although that didn't stop them from like attacking him and pissing him off, right? And I also did like the defiance of Odysseus in the closing segments of the Cyclops scene as well, where as they escaped, the Cyclops kind of like stuck his head out the door and just like spit out one of the soldiers' helmets to say, yeah, fuck you. And then Odysseus took out a bow and shot him in the eye, where Odysseus essentially went, right back at you, right? Saying, fuck you too. And then that really pissed him off and he started chasing them, which was also a great scene because also I really liked how he was kind of like disguised in the trees. You couldn't even really get a good look at him, even though he was, you know, in broad daylight on the island chasing them. I also liked how you didn't really get a huge good look at him until they got to the beach. I really liked Cersei's scene. I think the scene with Cersei and turning the soldiers into pigs, I think was great. And also I like how Cersei isn't really a villain necessarily. You can kind of understand where she's coming from, right? Because, I mean, we saw what the soldiers did in the Siege of Troy, right? They were just slaughtering innocent civilians mercilessly, right? So who's to say they wouldn't have done the same to her? I mean, obviously they weren't, right? But she didn't know that, right? Although, obviously, a little extreme what she did, quite extreme. But I think, I also like how diplomatic, I guess just sidetrack, I like how diplomatic Odysseus is in this film. Like, he doesn't really try to fight all too often. I mean, obviously, if he's not given an option, he will fight. And obviously, he's up against impossible odds, so usually he just runs away because you don't really have a choice, right, with the amount of things and the strength of the things chasing him. And I like how the whole movie he's like running away from these creatures and these monsters and these, like, you know, beings of otherworldly ability, and eventually, like, well, not eventually, at the end of the movie, after we've seen him run away from threats the whole movie, he just decimates the entire, like, all the suitors, like, with basically no effort. Obviously, he gets beat up a bit, but he kicks their ass, even though they do get some hits in. The movie, like, reminds you, yeah, this dude is a legendary warrior, right? The only reason he was running away the whole movie is because how are you going to fight a Cyclops? How are you going to fight giant, like, armor-clad soldiers? Like, you kind of have to run away if you're smart, right? You're not going to try to fight those things. And I guess maybe to wrap up my thoughts here, because if I wanted to talk about everything I liked about this movie, we'd be here all day. So I think my last thing that I really want to say that I really liked, I guess, well, maybe two things. I think this is a small thing, but I really like the hunting dog, like the little arc with the hunting dog, because he had in the movie he was really old, and he was 20, and they kind of said that he was only still alive because he was waiting for Odysseus to come back. The gods willed his hunting dog to stay alive until he came back so that he could see him one last time. And then when Odysseus finally returned, like, the dog was just kind of laying outside the palace for days. Right, he was really hurt, really injured, but he was still hanging in there. And when he saw Odysseus, you know, he was super happy, and then he died. He went on to the next world. And they were proven right. Gods willed him to stay alive to see his master one last time, which I thought was a very touching moment. It was very sad, but it was also very sweet and bittersweet kind of way. But I guess, like, the final thing I want to mention is the whole final thing with Odysseus coming back to, you know, clean up the palace and get rid of the suitors. Like, the whole plan that he had, and just the way he deals with the suitors is so great. I love the comeuppance of Robert Pattinson's character, who's probably one of, if not the most vile character in the movie, the most dishonorable character in the movie, probably the antithesis of Odysseus's, like, whole, like, philosophy, right? The anti-Odysseus, essentially. There is no honor, there is no diplomacy, there's just, you know, selfish desire and just, I guess, taking and taking and taking without contributing anything. And I love the whole setup. I love the way at the end when Odysseus is against, like, what, 20 or so, like 30 suitors, and he's just destroying them. At first he's destroying them without any, like, he has his bow, right, and he's, like, shooting them with his bow, and eventually he, like, he just shoves one's face into the axes hanging in the middle of the room, and then he, like, starts using, because the axes are, like, tied together, so he starts, like, swinging them like giant nunchucks, kind of, which I think is great. And I just think the whole final fight with Odysseus and the Suitors is great. I love how much the Suitors, like, how much the movie gets you to hate them because of how much of a loudmouths they are, how much, like, just how much of a prick they are, how big of assholes they all are. And then at the end of the movie, you see them get their comeuppance by getting destroyed by Odysseus. The guy, oh, he's dead. He's never coming back. You know, you shouldn't even consider that as a possibility. And he comes back and destroys them. Great payoff, right? And I think it was very satisfying to finally see that. And credit to all the actors, Robert Pattinson and everyone else at playing the Suitors, because they were very easily hateable, despicable sons of bitches. Credit to you. That was the purpose of them in the movie. Great job. And but I'm rambling here. I think I'm just gonna wrap up the review. And I think I would absolutely recommend this film. I would absolutely recommend this film. I think it is great. I think it's really enjoyable. I think if you're a fan of the Odyssey, if you've read the story, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had here. And even if you're not, I think it's still just a really enjoyable film. If you enjoy, I guess, Greek mythology, if you just, I guess, enjoy classic literature in that sense. And with that being said, you may ask, what would I rate this film? Well, I think I would rate this film an 8.5 out of 10. And, yeah, I think that's what I say. Thank you for some peace. So, guys, I hope you like this video. Share it with friends. Subscribe. Turn those notifications on. Comment down below on how much you liked it. But you guys know how it goes. I didn't really mean to say that. What I really meant to say. So, if you guys hated this video, unsubscribe. Just like tell me how much you hate me in the comments. And I've been on Tamishi, off to find my way back home. And, I'm home. I found my way, guys. It was that easy. You know, I was watching this movie, right? And when I finished it, I was like, holy shit, this was great. Wow, the hate that this movie had been getting forever for no reason was actually just semantic bullshit and culture war nonsense. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that a poster, a teaser trailer, and in, like, stylized costume design doesn't make a movie terrible? It's mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Then again, semantics is the internet's favorite word. So what are you gonna do?